The Chinese Special Administrative Region, that's Hong Kong, where pro-Beijing candidates are sweeping votes in Hong Kong's first election held since China amended electoral laws for control over offices. Now, voter turnout is unexpectedly very low. About 30.2% of eligible voters cast their ballots in Sunday's election, a figure that is almost half that of the previous legislative poll in 2016. The election has been criticized by some activists, foreign governments and rights groups as undemocratic. Mainstream pro-democracy parties did not participate, saying they could not endorse any candidates for a poll that was undemocratic. And joining me now from Hong Kong to discuss this controversial election is a journalist, Wan Wah Sum. Good to have you join us.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. This is the first election since China made some sweeping and controversial laws to tighten control in Hong Kong. Talk to us about how the election played out.
Well, the turnout rate happened to be just half of the previous elections, and people are seemingly very uninterested in participating. And there's some few Democrats participate in the election, but only one of them get elected. So the result was quite disappointing to people who support democracy in Hong Kong, and the situation that the future Legislative Council will be less plural, and we will expect the government executive-led style will continue, and the policy will have a little voice of opposition.
And the only person, the pro-democracy person who even won that election is, I think, Dick Yuan. But I will get to him shortly, because there are even allegations that he's sort of loyal to Beijing. But I want to get to that shortly. Let's talk about the fact that the Legislative Council is the most powerful group in Beijing, in Hong Kong rather, and they got the pro-Beijing camp and the pro-establishment camp seems to have gotten 82 out of 90 seats rather in the council. How does this position Hong Kong politically?
Well, there used to gradual democratic development in Hong Kong, and the Democrats have gained a majority of seats since last election in the district level. So that is the result of the 2019 democratic movement and social movement. So the Pro-Beijing camp have been afraid the council will be. Then we'll see there's a lot of conflict and a lot of demonstration happening in the legislative chamber, and the law are simply get on hold. So the pro-Beijing camp have used this argument to change the whole system. But now there was virtually no opposition voice, and like one or two out of the 90 future legislators will have the pro-democratic stance in politically. So we'll see that in terms of livelihood or in terms of other policy, the government can pass any legislation they are going to force into the council, and even the most controversial legislation like the security law and local security law, and the law that will limit freedom on internet or freedom on speech, freedom on press. They are going to have legislation like these kind. Even in the past, the Democratic camp will voice out a little bit opposition voice, and even use very radical strategy in stopping the legislation move on. But we'll expect there will be no such conflicts and so no such struggle in the Legislative Council in the future. So for people in Hong Kong, this is an election no one wants to see, and people are simply uninterested because the system seems to be unfair to the political.
And I'm guessing that's the reason for the voter apathy. But where does this leave China in terms of control over Hong Kong? What sort of China has been looking to tighten control over Hong Kong since for years now, and it has also been trying to push for loyalty from the Legislative Council. Now that it has, we have the pro-Beijing camp and pro-establishment camp more in the Legislative Council. What sort of credence or what sort of opportunity does it give to China to tighten control, and what sort of loss do you think we're going to see in the coming months, in the coming weeks?
That will not happen in weeks, perhaps, but definitely in the future term of the Legislative Council, we'll see very controversial law like the Article 23, which was which have been limiting the freedom of speech on the internet, something using the copyright issue. So this kind of law, or stopping people to have a lot of demonstration rights and power to gather. So these kind of laws will be by the government. They can push forward by the government through a legislative council with virtually no resistance. And one of the very we are a very worrying law that have been raised in the past is the fake news law. Fake news law that will limit the freedom of press, and if they use that law, the press freedom in Hong Kong will be heavily damaged. These laws have been voiced out in the past, but have been stopped in the Legislative Council, and virtually in the new setup of the council, we will see very few resistance in the council.
And this has been the worry of the international community in terms of how far China will go in terms of tightening security, its control in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is one of China's biggest trading hub in terms of shipping and just foreign direct investment. We've seen how the international community has been reacting over the national security law and the electoral laws. What do you think this will mean for the international community? Could Hong Kong become a weapon in the hand of China to begin to deal with, in quotes, the international community?
Well, the government have always using the economic stability and economic development as the reason for not developing democracy in Hong Kong. And for the social movement, the large-scale social movement in 2019 have set an alarm on the mainland authority that Hong Kong may be out of control if things happen that way. So they are going to tighten the control in Hong Kong. So they are proposing that after the national security law have been implemented, the stability in Hong Kong have go normal. So this is the reaction or the discourse that China have always trying to tell the international community that after the national security law have implemented and the stability, the demonstration have gone. So people can concentrate on their life and concentrate on economic development. That's how they portray Hong Kong to the international community. But in Hong Kong, we see a lot of suppression of the civil society, a lot of suppression on the freedom, individual freedom, like the rights to demonstration. Things like that have seen Hong Kong getting to voice out in the community through people outside Hong Kong.
So it's just a very intriguing situation. We'll see how everything plays out in the coming days. Thank you so much for talking to us as always, journalist Wan Wah Sum.
Thank you.